Human trafficking is one of the fastest growing crimes in the world.
When you hear the words human trafficking, what comes to mind? Third world countries? Sex? Labor?
The truth is, this doesn't only happen in other countries, and human trafficking isn't limited to prostitution. Human trafficking has no boundaries. It can affect any gender, class, race, anyone.
Starting at only 6 years old, survivor Liz Williamson was trafficked until the age of 22. She was trafficked and abused inside her own home right outside Philadelphia.
I was first trafficked by my mom when I was 6 years old. And that's usually pretty hard for people to even comprehend because we never want to think that our parents could be bad people.
Today, Liz stands as a survivor and advocate of the anti-trafficking movement.
Many believe the trauma ends once you are removed from the dangerous situation. However, the effects of human trafficking are long-lasting.
And 75% of them had post-traumatic stress disorder. So when you think of post-traumatic stress disorder, you think of Vietnam vets and people who've been through horrendous things. These kids have post-traumatic stress disorder as well because they have been through horrendous things themselves.
What many organizations hope to achieve is to provide survivors with resources and confidence to continue their lives. But these organizations can't work alone. They need help and funding from the government. It's understandable that the government would be hesitant when funding is involved. However, this topic isn't prioritized enough in our economy or society.
And the government has tried to help, but when we talk to them about really making systemic changes, which involve funding, they have not responded.
There's a very apparent correlation between the human trafficking and transportation industries. To combat this, organizations such as Airline Ambassadors and Truckers Against Trafficking provide educational trainings around the world.
We know that traffickers either use the transportation industry to transport the girls or those transportation people. So if it's a truck driver, they could be up at 3 a.m. and they see something that we don't see.
The number of victims continues to rise across the nation. We're letting down past survivors, present targets, and future victims.
Big problems in the human trafficking movement is there's no sharing of data and there's no way to report consistently.
In many cases, trials regarding human trafficking can take years to process. But in the past 20 years, there have been some significant steps that have made the prosecution process easier.
My first sex trafficking case wasn't a sex trafficking case. It was a prostitution case because that's how that was a legal landscape at the time.
In the year 2000, the TVPA, Trafficking Victims Protection Act, was passed. This act was a step in the right direction regarding the anti-human trafficking movement. It's continued being built on in years following.
Although the continuation of the TVPA has covered a few of the political boundaries regarding human trafficking, the number of cases reported in comparison to the rate of prosecution is drastically different.
Having been with the FBI, prosecuting traffickers requires the evidence to support it. So that can be difficult. If you are in the federal agency, to prosecute a case could take years.
In addition to the rise in cases, the development of human trafficking in the recent years as a result of the internet have made matters worse.
Because technology is so prevalent in our society, crime has a lot of digital or technology pieces connected to it.
Along with the internet comes many widespread misconceptions. These misconceptions often lead to uneducated youth who become more vulnerable with every lie. In order to get an accurate depiction of what our peers believe about human trafficking, we took our curiosity straight to our source, our high school.
Does human trafficking happen in our community? Maybe. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Like recently, is it the Epstein Island thing?
The students in our high school, along with so many others across the world, are misinformed.
A lot of people understand and have accepted that human trafficking happens, but they usually say it happens somewhere else. There was a study that was done recently, and it asked that question of, do you believe that human trafficking happens? And 73% of people said, yes, it happens. Then they followed it up with a question that was, do you believe it's happening in your community? And that number dropped all the way to 22%.
Human trafficking is a webbed and complex system that is constantly growing and taking lives. January is National Human Trafficking Month. Trafficking is in your community and happening to anyone. We need to acknowledge this and stop living in denial.
If people didn't buy other people, sex trafficking wouldn't exist.
If we had a scenario
where we could rescue every single victim of sex trafficking in the country today, I would contend that tomorrow, all we have is an incredible vacuum of supply that the traffickers would absolutely fill within a matter of time.
The public would rather admire pretty lies than the ugly truth. Because honestly, the truth is ugly. It's disgusting and incredibly disturbing. But as a society, we often feel that it isn't our responsibility. The truth is, human trafficking wouldn't exist without a consumer's demand. That's why we, as a nation, community, and individuals, need to own up to our imperfections and as a whole, be more perceptive and more proactive.